As the Senate resumed plenary on Tuesday, one of the bills that was passed for consideration was the Central Gaming Bill 2025. Senator Michael Oyeniyi Bamidele, the Senate leader and representative for Ekiti Central, plays a pivotal role as the bill progresses in the Senate following its passage in the House of Reps. The bill has been proposed in Nigeria with the intent to establish a comprehensive regulatory framework for online and remote gaming, aiming to replace the previously repealed National Lottery Act of 2005. However, there have been calls by the Federation of State Gaming Regulators of Nigeria asking the Senate not to approve the bill. In a petition addressed to the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, the group argued that the National Assembly's lawmaking powers in this area extend only to the Federal Capital Territory. Any attempt to extend such powers to the states, they said, will be unconstitutional and inconsistent with Nigeria's federal structure. Joining us on this show to discuss the Central Gaming Bill is Oyeniyi Immanuel, a lawyer and co-founder and managing partner of CircleLLP. He's also a business advisor with over a decade of deep expertise at the intersection of telecommunications, gaming, and technology, and across Africa. Well, good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Yes, very good. Well, what is the problem with the Central Gaming Bill? Passed at the House of Reps, now an issue before the Senate of the Federal Republic. Is federalism at the center of it, or it is much ado about nothing? Considering, of course, the fact that gaming or lottery or what they call it is such a big business. And one man set up, was it an airline? You know,
oh yes, an airline, a bank, an energy company,
from lottery business,
from gaming,
and then we also know, you know,
a football club.
I don't want to embarrass anybody. Anyway, let's listen to you.
I think. Good morning again, and thank you for having me. And condolences again to the Arise team for the recent loss. So I think to your point, federalism is at the center of it because the Constitution is involved, right? It's a 14-year debate. The matter first started in 2008 before the Supreme Court. And then last year, November 2024, the Supreme Court gave a decision that clarified the position of the Constitution, right? The question essentially is whether or not, or who has the ability to regulate gaming in Nigeria, so lotteries and gaming. And the Supreme Court was very clear and very unequivocal, saying that the states are the ones that have the jurisdiction to regulate gaming and lotteries. And it was clear. As a matter of fact, the entire industry adjusted. The NLRC, or the erstwhile NLRC, which used to be the entity that regulated gaming nationally, or purported to regulate gaming nationally, became an FCT agency, a self-regulatory agency within the FCT. And then the states came together to form the FSGR, which is the Federation of State Gaming Regulators. And so with this, the industry had a sense of direction, right? But pre the judgment and post the judgment, the Central Gaming Bill has come back into conversation, right? Where the promoters of the bill are looking to have an agency regulate gaming. But I think the fundamental question here is the fact that the Supreme Court already gave a decision, right? And I think the key thing in that decision is a long read. But one of the key things in the conversation is when the Supreme Court said that the National Assembly cannot regulate anything that has to deal with, cannot pass any laws or legislate on any matters that have to deal with gaming and lotteries, right? And so that's what we should all go by. And where you have the Constitution, which is the ground norm, as it were, the foundational document of the country, give a certain position, and then the apex court then interprets that provision. I don't see, any other arguments that can be made against that.
But right? Are you aware whether anyone, including the Federation that you refer to, or any informed person, like say your law firm, for example, has made the effort to draw the attention of the National Assembly to this? Because the National Assembly of Nigeria that is supposed to make laws for good governance cannot be seen to be breaking the laws of Nigeria.
Yes, 100%, sir. So I watched the plenary session where where the bill was discussed, and thankfully, a lot of senators, I mean, whose names I can't mention, of course, essentially reminded the House of the fact that there is a sitting Supreme Court decision, and that the Supreme Court has put paid to the issue. And then bringing this up again is more or less trying to, wake up a dead horse, as it were, because the Supreme Court has interpreted a provision of the Constitution. You should be able to go to the bank with that sort of position to say this is what the law is. And then to then have a new law that seeks to, interestingly try to wake that issue up again is the reason why, this is another debate that we're having now. Yes, sir.
Okay, it's an interesting matter because, usually the advice will be go to court, but you've already gone to court. The Supreme Court has ruled, and like Dr. Bati mentioned, it's quite curious that the National Assembly will be seen to be breaking the law. So, for the sake of this conversation, I'd ask again, then what would be the option? Since you've already gone to court, the court has ruled at the Supreme Court level. Then the other question, again, would be some of the other provisions of the Central Gaming Law, which some people, the players in the industry, are against. One of which is a total ban on online money games. They have argued that there will be loss of income, job losses as a result of this. But the proposals, the promoters of the bill are saying that they need this because of gaming addiction to be able to address that. Where do you come in on that one? Because these are some of the criticisms that have come up with regards to Central Gaming Law.
I think that to speak to the second question first. As a matter of fact, what you have, so we've advised a lot of state governments on this issue, and one of the things that has happened in the last few years has been states essentially, in addition to their laws, creating responsible gaming regulations, right? Where there's a blacklist of people who are deemed to be addicted to games. Family members can write to state regulatory authorities saying a person in their family is having these issues and all of that. So I think the states are already in control of that issue. And then to the first point around trade, commerce, and all of that, interestingly, the Supreme Court also spoke to this point, right? Because one of the arguments of the promoters of the bill is the fact that, they're saying that it's online revenue and it's online gaming and all of those things. But the Supreme Court said, the promoters of the bill, of course, tried to rely on one of the items of the legislative list, where it talks about commerce and economic activity and things like that. And the Supreme Court was very clear, saying that, listen, you can't try to stretch the law when the drafters of the law had a certain intention. So the Supreme Court also spoke on that issue, saying that, if you cannot say gaming and lotteries falls under essential economic activity, because agriculture and sort of those are the areas that the exclusively sought to regulate, whereas things like gaming, which is entertainment and games of chance, should fall properly within the exclusive purview of the states. And so the Supreme Court was very clear on that. And in terms of revenue, right, the states already have come together to coordinate, which is what the FSGR is supposed to be. So the FSGR is a coordination of the state regulatory agencies coming together to administer the industry. Because the gap that seemed to have existed was the fact that you had all the states coming together, each of them having the power to regulate gaming, and then there is the online aspect of it, which is simply distribution channel, right? It's not a whole new industry. It's because, you have the shops, you have the tickets, you have all the things, and the mobile apps through which users game is essentially a distribution channel, right? And so the states have come together and said to cover and efficiently administer for the benefit of the industry and the sector, let's all come together and form a federation. And that was done earlier this year. There was an agreement signed by the regulators, and they've all come together to say, okay, this is how we're going to move forward. So between the Supreme Court's decision, the provision of the Constitution, and the initiative taken by the state regulators, I think the ground is covered. Right, I believe so. So those questions and all those debates, I would refer, anyone who's concerned to these developments that have happened of late.
I mean, another case of how government tries to stifle innovation and creativity. That's just a pure case.
Yeah.
Because when they keep making the advanced argument for, oh, this is done on the line, online and everything. What if I take the game into dark web? That's another plausible. I shouldn't be saying this on television to even give them the clue in the first place. All right. So, secondly, what if, and the argument of, oh, they want to use as a deterrent for people that are addicted to gaming. What's the empirical data on people addicted to gaming in Nigeria?
I don't know.
So we'd like to ask them. Maybe you could try on some of this thing. Yeah. What's the empirical data on people addicted to gaming in this country, based on reportage? I mean, so it just shows that it falls flat on the point, and it's just a way to be able to cannibalize a sector that people like those you represent built and is working. I mean, what can we say to them and tell them this morning not to kill innovation?
Yes, I mean, it's a very valid point you make, and I think the more fundamental and concerning point for us as operators in the industry is the fact that investor confidence is built a lot on regulatory certainty, right? We want to know that if I come into a business or I come into a country and I want to do business, the law doesn't change. So where you have the Constitution and the Supreme Court interpreting a provision of the Constitution, it should not, that should, as a matter of fact, once you have that combination, it should be done. You should be able to go to the bank and say, this is what the position of the law is.
Okay, first, I would like to ask you, what do you recommend? And there are some gray areas that you may need to help us clarify. The law talks about digital affairs being exclusive to the federal government, Cybercrime Act, all of that. Now, where do you draw the line? Should the states also be responsible for things like cybercrime, money laundering that are interconnected, in this regard, gaming, lottery, whatever?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. That's a very, very good question, because that essentially is the basis on which, one of the points that the promoters of the Central Gaming Bill have relied on. But I think that there has to be a distinction between form and substance, right? In the sense that where you look at what's being regulated here, right? In terms of substance, it's gaming, right? It's lotteries, it's all the games of chance that exist in the industry. Today, you could go to a shop, do a ticket and game. You could do through other channels, as well as a mobile app, right? Which is a distribution channel. So there's that bit of it, which is the substance of the industry. It's almost saying that you want to hive off the banking app from transactions in the whole. Okay. Yes, sir.
Can I just suggest a quick solution? And I've been in many frontier industries that has to do with tech. The solution is I think what you guys should do is set up a regulatory framework, a regulatory sandbox with government, where both of you and the government and the regulators can sit and even make them understand the arguments at first.
I believe this has happened, but we're hoping that...
maybe you can...
We're hopeful. All right, well, thank you so much for being with us today, and hopefully the matters will be resolved and the ruling of the Supreme Court will be taken into consideration in the framing of this law. Thank you.
Thank you very much.